The rust flaked off in Owen's hands as he worked the wrench around another stubborn bolt. His grandfather's old tractor had been sitting in the barn for 3 years now, collecting dust and mouse nests. The farm needed equipment, and Owen couldn't afford new machinery. This dinosaur from the 1970s would have to do. Sweat dripped down his neck despite the cool autumn air flowing through the barn's open doors. 24 years old and already feeling ancient. The farm was drowning in debt, and Owen was drowning right along with it. His grandfather would have known what to do, but the old man had taken all his farming wisdom to the grave. Owen climbed into the tractor's cabin and immediately regretted it. Decades of accumulated grime covered every surface. Spiderwebs stretched across the steering wheel like nature's own security system. He grabbed a rag and started wiping down the cracked leather seat, revealing faded green vinyl underneath. Something rolled when he shifted his weight. Owen frowned and felt around behind the seat. His fingers touched something smooth and warm, wedged tight in the narrow space. He pulled harder, and the object suddenly came free, sending him stumbling backward out of the cabin. Owen caught himself against the barn wall and stared at what he held. An egg, but calling it just an egg felt wrong. The thing was the size of a watermelon, its surface covered in crystalline scales that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. Colors shifted across its surface like oil on water. And it was warm, almost hot against his palms. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Owen carefully set the egg on a pile of old blankets and pulled out his phone. Another message from the bank about overdue payments. He swiped it away and opened his browser instead. Alien egg identification. Dragon species galactic database. Crystalline egg warm to touch. The search results made his stomach drop. Ever since Earth had joined the galactic community 5 years ago, information had been flooding in faster than anyone could process it. Owen scrolled through images of various alien species and their reproductive methods until he found a match: draconic species, native to Draconis system, highly intelligent, empathic capabilities, extreme rarity, protected status across all civilized worlds. Owen looked back at the egg resting on the blankets. A dragon. His grandfather had hidden a dragon egg in his tractor. Why? How? When? The egg pulsed with light, a soft glow emanating from within the crystalline shell. Owen moved closer, drawn by curiosity and something else he couldn't name. He reached out and touched the surface again. The warmth spread up his arm, comfortable and reassuring that a crack appeared. Owen jerked his hand back, but the damage was done. The crack spread like a lightning bolt across the egg's surface, branching into smaller fissures. Light poured through the gaps, bright and pure. Owen's heart hammered in his chest. This was happening. This was really happening. More cracks appeared, the egg fracturing into sections like a puzzle coming apart. Owen knelt beside it, unsure whether to help or run away. A piece of shell fell away, and he saw movement inside. Scales, tiny claws, an eye that gleamed with intelligence beyond anything he expected. The hatchling pushed its way out, tumbling onto the blankets in a mess of wet scales and folded wings. It was small, barely the size of his neighbor's cat, with scales that shimmered between blue and green depending on the angle. The wings were translucent membranes stretched between delicate bone structures. And those eyes, they looked right into him, through him, seeing everything he was and everything he feared. The dragon chirped. The sound was high and sweet, almost like a bird, but with an underlying resonance that Owen felt in his chest. It stood on wobbly legs and took one shaky step toward him, then another. When it reached his knee, it pressed its head against him, and the chirping became a soft, rumbling purr. Owen's hand moved on its own, gently stroking the wet scales. The dragon leaned into his touch, eyes closing in contentment. Something clicked in his mind, a connection he didn't understand, but felt as real as the ground beneath his knees. This creature trusted him, chose him. His phone buzzed again. Owen ignored it, too focused on the impossible thing happening in his barn. The dragon opened its eyes and looked up at him, and Owen knew with absolute certainty that he couldn't give this up. Whatever happened next, whoever came looking, This little dragon was his responsibility now. The dragon's scales were already drying, the colors becoming more vibrant. It spread its tiny wings experimentally, and Owen couldn't help but smile. His first real smile in months, maybe years. Then reality crashed back down. Dragons were protected, rare, valuable. There would be laws about this, regulations, people who would want to take her away. Owen looked around the barn as if solutions might be hiding in the shadows. The farm inspection was in 2 weeks. Galactic agricultural representatives checking Earth farms for compliance with new regulations. The dragon chirped again and nuzzled his hand. Owen made his decision. He would figure this out. He had to. 3 days had changed everything. Owen sat at his kitchen table with cold coffee and a dozen browser tabs open on his laptop. The dragon, curled up in a nest of blankets beside the wood stove, had already doubled in size. She was now as big as a medium dog, her scales gleaming in the firelight. He had named her Cleo after his grandmother. It felt right somehow, connecting the past to this impossible present. The galactic database had given him more questions than answers. Dragons from the Draconus system were empathic, forming deep bonds with other sentient beings. They were also nearly extinct, with fewer than 20 known to exist in the entire galaxy. Owning one without proper permits meant serious legal trouble, but abandoning her was unthinkable. Cleo stretched and yawned, showing rows of tiny sharp teeth. She padded over to Owen and rested her head on his knee, looking up at him with those intelligent eyes. He scratched behind the ridge where her skull met her neck, and she rumbled with pleasure. His phone rang. Mrs. Patterson from the neighboring farm. Owen answered with his free hand. Owen, dear, I heard some unusual noises from your barn yesterday. Is everything all right? Just some old equipment falling over. Nothing to worry about. Are you sure? I could come by and help you organize. Owen glanced at Cleo, who was now investigating his coffee mug with intense curiosity. That's kind of you, but I've got it handled. Thanks, though. He ended the call and exhaled slowly. Close. Too close. The farm sat on 40 acres, but Mrs. Patterson had eyes like a hawk and the curiosity of a detective. Keeping Cleo hidden wouldn't be easy. Over the next week, Owen established a routine. Early mornings in the barn, teaching Cleo to stay quiet when people were around. She learned frighteningly fast, understanding not just commands but intentions. When Owen felt anxious, she would press against him, radiating calm. When he was sad about the farm situation, she would do silly things to make him laugh. The empathic bond went both ways. Owen could sense her moods too. Her joy when they played in the backfield after dark. Her frustration when her wings wouldn't cooperate during flight practice. Her contentment when they sat together in the evening. But Cleo was growing. Fast. By the end of the first week, she stood as tall as Owen's waist. Her wings had developed enough for short, gliding jumps. Soon she would be too big to hide inside the house. Owen was inspecting the south field when Cleo found him. She wasn't supposed to leave the barn during daylight, but she had never been good at following rules she didn't understand. She bounded through the rows of struggling corn, her tail knocking over stalks as she ran. Cleo, no, get back to the barn. She skidded to a stop and tilted her head. Then she did something unexpected. She walked to a section of corn that looked identical to all the rest and started digging at the base of the plants. Owen hurried over to stop her, but paused when he saw what she had uncovered. Root rot. The plants were diseased at the base, hidden beneath healthy-looking stalks. Cleo looked at him, then moved to another section and repeated the process. More rot. Owen stared at her. You could sense the sick plants. Cleo chirped and nuzzled his hand. Over the next hour, she led him through the entire field, identifying every disease section. Owen marked them all, making notes on his phone. This information could save his harvest. That evening, Owen couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. He returned to the barn and searched through his grandfather's old belongings, boxes he had been meaning to sort through for years. At the bottom of a toolbox, he found a leather journal. The entries were sparse, written in his grandfather's careful handwriting. Most were typical farming notes, but as Owen flipped through the pages, certain phrases jumped out. Promised my old friend I would keep it safe. The last guardian sleeps. Maybe one day, Someone worthy will wake her. Dragons remember. They always remember. Owen read the entries 3 times, his hands shaking. His grandfather had known about the egg, had protected it for decades. But from who? And why hide it in the tractor? A rumbling sound interrupted his thoughts. An engine, but not like any car or truck. Owen rushed outside and saw lights in the sky. A vehicle was descending toward his farm, sleek and clearly not of Earth origin. His stomach dropped. The agricultural inspection wasn't supposed to happen for another week. Cleo emerged from the barn behind him, drawn by his distress. She was too big now, too visible. Owen tried to signal her back inside, but she wouldn't move. She sensed danger, and her instincts told her to stay close to him. The vehicle landed in his driveway, sending up clouds of dust. 2 figures emerged. One was tall and insectoid, its body covered in dark chitinous plates. The other was shorter, covered in soft fur with large eyes and ears that swiveled independently. Owen's mind raced through options. Run? Impossible. Lie? They could probably scan for life signs. Fight? Against aliens with technology he couldn't comprehend. The insectoid approached first, its movements precise and mechanical. When it spoke, its voice came from a translator device hanging around its neck. Owen Reed, we are here for the standard agricultural compliance review. I am Inspector Taurin, and this is my colleague Mira. Mira, the furry alien, was looking past Owen toward the barn. Her large eyes went wider. She made a sound, soft and reverent, then dropped to her knees. Taurin followed her gaze and froze. After a moment, the insectoid also lowered himself in what could only be described as a bow. Owen turned. Cleo stood in the barn doorway, her scales catching the setting sun and throwing back brilliant shards of light. She looked majestic and terrible and beautiful all at once. Mira was crying, tears rolling down her furry cheeks. Silence stretched across the farmyard like a living thing. Owen stood frozen between the kneeling aliens and his dragon, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. Cleo watched the visitors with calm curiosity, her tail swishing slowly behind her. Mira spoke first, her voice thick with emotion. A dragon. A living dragon. I never thought I would see one in my lifetime. Taurin's translator crackled to life. This changes the nature of our inspection considerably. Owen found his voice. Look, I can explain. I didn't steal her. I didn't even know she existed until 10 days ago. She was in my grandfather's tractor, and she hatched, and I couldn't just abandon her. Mira rose to her feet slowly, wiping her eyes. No one is accusing you of theft, human, but you must understand what you have here. Dragons are not simply rare creatures. They are sacred to dozens of species across the galaxy. My homeworld, Mira continued, stepping closer but keeping her movements careful and respectful, was dying 300 years ago. Toxic atmosphere, failing crops, endless storms. A dragon came to us. Just one. She sensed our world's pain and spent 50 years helping us understand how to heal it. By the time she passed, we had learned to live in balance again. Cleo chirped and moved forward. She approached Mira fearlessly and pressed her snout against the alien's outstretched paw. Mira gasped, fresh tears streaming down her face. She remembers, Mira whispered. Dragons always remember. The knowledge passes through generations. She knows what her ancestors did for my people. Taurin stood as well, though he maintained more distance. The legal situation is complex, Owen Reed. Dragons cannot be owned in the traditional sense. They choose their companions through empathic bonding. The bond cannot be forced or faked. She chose me, Owen said, and Cleo immediately returned to his side, pressing against his leg. I didn't force anything. She hatched, and she just knew somehow. We believe you, Taurin said. The dragon's behavior makes that clear. However, the Galactic Council has strict protocols for dragon guardianship. There are only 12 known dragons in the entire documented galaxy. Now, 13. This discovery will attract significant attention. Owen's stomach sank. What kind of attention? Mira exchanged a glance with Taurin. The kind that includes scientists who want to study her, politicians who want to use her as a symbol, and unfortunately, collectors who would pay fortunes to possess her. Over my dead body, Owen said, and meant it. Cleo growled, a deep, rumbling sound that vibrated through the ground. She understood the threat, even if she didn't understand the words that Tauren's translator made a sound that might have been approval. That response is precisely what we hope to hear. However, we must complete our inspection and file our report. Once that report reaches the Council, others will come. The Draconic Heritage Foundation will certainly dispatch representatives. Can't we just not mention her in the report? Owen knew how desperate he sounded. Impossible, Tauren said. Our ships have already scanned your farm. The dragon's biological signature is on record. Attempting to hide her now would only make things worse for you both. Mira moved closer to Owen, her voice gentle. There's a path forward. The Foundation respects the sacred bond between dragons and their chosen companions. If you can prove the bond is genuine, they will support your guardianship rather than oppose it. How do I prove it? There are tests, ancient rituals that measure the depth of empathic connection. They are not easy, but if you truly care for her, you will pass. Owen looked down at Cleo, who gazed back with complete trust. When do these tests happen? Soon, Tauren said. But first, we must complete the agricultural inspection. May we proceed? The next hour was surreal. Tauren and Mira examined Owen's fields, equipment, and records while Cleo followed along like an oversized, scaly dog. The aliens asked standard questions about crop yields and soil health, acting as though having a dragon present was perfectly normal. When they reached the south field, Mira noticed Owen's markings indicating diseased plants. You identified root rot early. That requires experience or expensive scanning equipment. Cleo found them, Owen admitted. She can sense sick plants somehow. Tauren made a clicking sound. Dragons have many abilities beyond the obvious. Plant health sensing is rare but documented. Your dragon is special even among her kind. They finished the inspection as the sun began setting. Tauren produced a data pad and made notes. Your farm meets all standard requirements. In fact, with the dragon's assistance, your crop health exceeds typical Earth agricultural standards. What happens now? Owen asked that Myra's ears drooped sympathetically. Now we file our report, and you prepare. The Foundation will arrive within days. They're not cruel, Owen, but they are protective. Dragons are too precious to risk with unworthy guardians. I'm just a farmer. I don't know anything about galactic protocols or ancient rituals. Your grandfather knew, Tauren said. He protected that egg for decades. He believed someone worthy would find her. He believed in you. After the aliens departed, Owen sat on his porch with Cleo's head in his lap. The stars were coming out, more stars than he had ever noticed before. Somewhere up there, people were talking about his dragon, making decisions that would affect both their lives. Cleo made a soft sound, and Owen felt warmth spread through their bond. Comfort, support, trust. We'll figure this out, he told her. Whatever these tests are, whatever they want from us, we'll handle it together. Cleo's response was wordless but clear. She wasn't afraid. As long as they were together, nothing else mattered. 3 days later, a massive ship appeared in orbit above Owen's farm. It was elegant and ancient, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change. Owen stood in his yard, Cleo by his side, and watched smaller craft descend. The Draconic Heritage Foundation had arrived. The delegation from the Draconic Heritage Foundation brought an entourage that made Tauren and Myra's visit look casual. 7 aliens of different species emerged from the shuttle, each wearing formal robes marked with dragon symbols. At their center walked Director Yenna, a reptilian being who stood over 7 feet tall with scales that gleamed like polished silver. Yenna's eyes locked on Cleo immediately, and for a long moment, the director simply stared. Then she approached with movements that were both graceful and predatory. Cleo tensed but didn't retreat, pressing closer to Owen's leg. A youngling, Yenna said, her voice deep and resonant without need for a translator. Still in her first growth phase. Where did you acquire her, human? I didn't acquire her. She hatched in my barn. My grandfather hid the egg in an old tractor. Yenna's gaze shifted to Owen, evaluating. And you expect me to believe a simple Earth farmer just happened upon one of the galaxy's most precious beings? I don't care what you believe. It's the truth. One of the other delegates, a floating jellyfish-like creature, drifted forward. Director, the biological scans confirm the bond markers. They are genuinely connected. Bond markers can be artificially induced, Yena said. There are drugs, technologies, ways to fake empathic connections for profit. Owen felt anger rising in his chest, and Cleo responded immediately. She stepped in front of him and growled, a sound that started low and built until the ground vibrated. The delegates stepped back. Even Yena showed a flicker of surprise. Your dragon is protective, Yena observed. That is natural, but protection does not equal true bonding. We have seen many humans claim special connections with powerful beings since Earth joined the galactic community. Most are delusional or dishonest. Then test us, Owen said. You mentioned rituals that prove genuine bonds. Let's do them. Yena studied him for a long moment. The trials of unity are not games, human. They will push both of you to your limits. Many bonded pairs have failed them. Failure means separation. The dragon will be taken to a proper sanctuary, and you will never see her again. Cleo whined and pressed harder against Owen. Through their bond, he felt her fear. Not fear of the tests, but fear of losing him. We won't fail, Owen said with more confidence than he felt. The delegates set up their equipment in Owen's largest barn, clearing space and arranging crystalline devices in geometric patterns. Mrs. Patterson had already called twice asking about the alien ships, but Owen had put her off with vague explanations. He couldn't worry about nosy neighbors right now. Yena explained the trials as her team worked. The first trial is called the Mirror of Souls. You and your dragon will face each other within a resonance field. Your emotions will be amplified and shared completely. No secrets, no videos. If your bond is true, you will find harmony. If it is false, the dissonance will be unbearable. What happens if we can't handle it? The trial will end, and the dragon will be removed from your custody immediately. Owen looked at Cleo, who watched the preparations with intelligent eyes. Through their bond, he felt her certainty. She wasn't afraid. She trusted him completely. The first trial began as sunset painted the sky orange and gold. Owen and Cleo stepped into a circle of light generated by the crystalline devices. The world outside the circle blurred and faded until only they remained. Then the emotions hit. Owen felt everything Cleo felt. Her joy when she first saw him. Her curiosity about the world. Her frustration when her wings wouldn't work properly. Her deep, bone-deep certainty that Owen was hers and she was his, and Cleo felt him. His grief over his grandfather's death. His fear of losing the farm. His loneliness. His desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, he could be enough for this incredible creature. The emotions swirled together, mixing and amplifying. Owen's fear fed Cleo's anxiety. Her anxiety increased his fear. The cycle built on itself, threatening to spiral out of control. But underneath all the fear and grief and worry, Owen found something solid. Love. Not romantic love, but something deeper and simpler. The love of a guardian for someone precious. The love of a friend who asks nothing in return. The love that says, I will protect you even if it costs me everything. Cleo found it too. Her love was different, instinctive and pure. The love of a child for a parent. The love of a companion for their chosen one. The love that says you're my home, my safety, my whole world. The negative emotions didn't disappear, but they stopped spiraling. Instead, they washed through the bond and out again, acknowledged and released. What remained was warm and steady and unbreakable. The light faded. Owen found himself kneeling in the barn with Cleo wrapped around him, both of them breathing hard. The delegates were silent. Yena approached slowly. The first trial is past. Your bond is genuine. But this was the easiest test. Over the next 2 days, Owen and Cleo faced 4 more trials. The trial of trust required Owen to fall backward from a platform while Cleo, still learning to fly, had to catch him. She did, barely, her wings straining under his weight. The The trial of sacrifice asked each of them to choose between their own comfort and the other's well-being. Both chose the other without hesitation. The trial of understanding tested whether they could communicate complex ideas through emotion alone. The trial of future asked them to commit to a lifetime together, knowing that Cleo would likely outlive Owen by centuries. They passed each one on the third evening. Yenna called Owen to meet her alone. Cleo was sleeping in the barn, exhausted from the trials. The director stood in Owen's field, looking up at the stars. Your grandfather, Yenna said without preamble, was bonded to Cleo's mother. Did you know that? Owen shook his head. Her name was Saren. She died protecting a colony from raiders 30 years ago. Before her death, she laid a final clutch of eggs and asked your grandfather to hide them until they found their own chosen ones. He was a man of honor. He kept his promise. How many eggs? Owen asked quietly. 3. Cleo is the first to hatch. The other 2 are still hidden, waiting. Where? Yenna turned to face him. We don't know. Your grandfather told no one. But now that Cleo has hatched and bonded, the others may wake soon. They will sense their sibling is safe and loved. What do you need from me? The Foundation officially recognizes your guardianship of Cleo. But we need guardians for the others as well. And we need help finding dragon eggs that may be hidden across Earth and other worlds. Your grandfather started something important, Owen. We hope he will continue his work. Owen looked back toward the barn where Cleo slept. I'm just a farmer. Your grandfather was just a soldier. Yet he became one of the greatest dragon guardians in recent history. You have his blood and his honor. More importantly, you have proven yourself worthy. A message came through on Yenna's communication device. She read it, and her expression shifted to alarm. What is it? Owen asked. Our scouts have located another dragon egg. But there's a problem. It is on an abandoned mining station controlled by scavengers. They don't know what they have yet, but they will soon. We need someone to retrieve the egg before it falls into the wrong hands. You want me to go? You're a bonded guardian now. You're the only one the unhatched dragon might accept. Yenna looked at him seriously. This is what your grandfather gave his life to. Will you continue his mission? The Foundation ship felt wrong to Owen. Everything was too smooth, too clean, too precise. He missed the rough wood of his barn and the smell of earth and growing things. Cleo seemed to agree, pressing close to him as they walked through corridors of polished metal. She had grown again. Now she stood as tall as a horse, her wings powerful enough to carry her considerable weight. The past week had been a blur of preparation. Combat training, zero-gravity movement, basic alien technology operation. Owen's head spun with information he barely understood. Tower and Mira had volunteered to join the mission, which gave Owen some comfort. At least he knew them. The rest of the team consisted of Foundation security personnel who looked at him with barely concealed skepticism. A human farmer playing guardian to a dragon. They probably thought it was a joke. Yenna briefed them in the command center. Holographic displays showed the abandoned mining station orbiting a dead moon. The station was evacuated 15 years ago after the mineral deposits ran dry. Scavengers use it as a base now, stripping valuable components to sell on black markets. How did a dragon egg end up there? Owen asked. We believe your grandfather hid it before the evacuation. He worked as a security consultant for the mining company. It would have been the perfect hiding place, isolated and forgotten. Mira pulled up detailed schematics. The egg's biological signature is coming from the lower maintenance levels. These areas have minimal gravity and no atmosphere. You will need suits. Can't we just ask the scavengers to give us the egg? Owen knew it was a naive question before he finished asking it. Tauren's translator clicked. Scavengers are not governed by galactic law. If they realize what they have, they will sell it to the highest bidder. Or worse, they might damage it trying to extract it from wherever it is hidden. So we sneak in, grab the egg, and leave. Simplified but accurate, Yenna said. We will create a distraction on the station's upper levels. You, Cleo, Tauren, and Mira will enter through a maintenance airlock and navigate to the egg's location. The entire operation should take less than 30 minutes. Owen looked at Cleo, who met his gaze steadily. Through their bond, he felt her readiness. She understood they were saving one of her siblings. The approach to the station was tense. Owen wore a bulky environmental suit that made him feel clumsy. Cleo wore nothing, her natural abilities allowing her to survive in vacuum for short periods. She stayed close to the ship until the airlock opened. The interior of the station was dark and cold. Owen's suit lights cut through the shadows, revealing corridors filled with floating debris. Tauren led the way with professional efficiency, checking corners and monitoring for scavenger patrols. They descended 3 levels without incident. Then alarms started blaring throughout the station. "The distraction has begun," Mira said through the communication system. "We have approximately 20 minutes before the scavengers investigate the lower levels." They moved faster, Cleo's wings allowing her to navigate the zero gravity with grace that Owen could only envy. His magnetic boots kept him grounded but slowed him down. Tauren had to help him twice when he nearly floated away from handholds. The maintenance level was a maze of pipes and machinery. Owen's scanner led them deeper into the guts of the station until they reached a sealed storage chamber. The door had been welded shut decades ago. "This is it," Mira said, checking her readings. "The egg is inside." Tauren produced a cutting tool and began working on the welds. Sparks flew in lazy arcs through the zero gravity. Minutes ticked by. Owen could hear sounds echoing through the station. The scavengers were coming. The door finally gave way. Inside the chamber, wedged between coolant tanks and covered in frost, was the egg. It was larger than Cleo's had been, its crystalline surface covered in ice that sparkled in their lights. Cleo pushed past Owen and pressed her snout against the frozen egg. She made a sound, low and mournful. The egg responded. Light pulsed beneath the ice, weak but present. "It is alive," Mira said with relief. "But we need to warm it carefully or the thermal shock could be fatal." "No time," Tauren said. "Scavengers approaching." 2 minutes out, Owen made a decision. He stripped off his suit's thermal layer and wrapped it around the egg, then activated the heating elements. Cleo helped, breathing carefully controlled flames that melted the ice without scorching the shell. The egg pulsed brighter. Through his bond with Cleo, Owen felt something else. Another presence, confused and frightened but aware. The unhatched dragon could sense them. Cleo chirped softly, a comforting sound. The egg's light steadied. "They are here," Tauren said. The corridor behind them filled with lights and angry voices, shouting in languages Owen didn't recognize. Mira sealed the chamber door and engaged the lock. "That will hold them for 30 seconds. Maybe." Owen carefully lifted the egg. It was heavy, easily 60 pounds, but adrenaline made it manageable. "Go." "I've got it." They ran. Or rather, they launched themselves through zero gravity in the direction of the airlock. Behind them, the door exploded inward. Energy weapons fired, bolts of superheated plasma cutting through the darkness. Cleo positioned herself as a shield, her wings spread wide. The plasma bolts struck her scales and dissipated harmlessly. She roared, and even in the vacuum, Owen felt the sound through their bond. A challenge. A warning. The scavengers hesitated. Whatever they expected to find, it wasn't a fully grown dragon protecting her guardian. Tauren reached the airlock first and cycled it open. Mira provided covering fire with her own weapon, forcing the scavengers to take cover. Owen pushed through the airlock with the egg clutched to his chest. Cleo was last through. She turned and blasted the corridor with dragon fire, melting metal and forcing the scavengers back. Then she was through and the airlock sealed behind them. The Foundation ship was waiting. They barely made it aboard before the scavengers started firing station weapons at them. But the ship's shields held, and moments later, they were jumping to faster-than-light travel, leaving the station far behind. Owen sat in the cargo bay with the egg in his lap, still wrapped in his thermal layer. Cleo lay beside him, her breathing heavy from exertion. Through their bond, he felt her satisfaction. They had done it. They had saved her sibling. Yenna entered the bay and knelt beside the egg. "You did well, Guardian. Both of you. What happens now?" Owen asked. "Now we return to Earth. The egg will be kept safe until it is ready to hatch. When it does, We will help it find its chosen companion. Another farmer. Owen tried to joke. Yenna smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Perhaps. Your grandfather knew that the best guardians come from those who understand patience, hard work, and the cycles of life and death. Farmers understand these things. Cleo made a soft sound and nuzzled the egg. The unhatched dragon responded with its own pulse of light. Siblings, recognizing each other across the shell. Owen leaned back against the bulkhead, exhausted but content. One egg saved, but his grandfather had hidden three. Somewhere out there, a third dragon egg waited to be found. And when it was ready, Owen would be there to help bring it home. Owen's farm looked different when the Foundation ship dropped him back home. Same fields, same barn, same house. But everything had changed. 3 months ago, he had been a struggling farmer facing bankruptcy. Now he stood in his yard with a dragon beside him and a second dragon egg in a specialized incubator in his barn. Mrs. Patterson was waiting on his porch with a plate of cookies and a knowing smile. You've been busy. You could say that. That dragon of yours has been keeping the deer out of my garden. I appreciate that. She handed him the cookies. The whole county's been talking, you know. Aliens coming and going, lights in the sky. Most folks are scared, but I told them you wouldn't bring anything dangerous here. Owen looked at Cleo, who was investigating the cookie plate with great interest. She's not dangerous. Well, not to friends. Mrs. Patterson reached out slowly, and Cleo allowed the old woman to scratch behind her head ridge. Beautiful creature. Your grandfather would be proud. After she left, Owen walked his fields with Cleo flying overhead. The crops looked healthier than they had in years. Word of his connection to the Foundation had brought attention from agricultural scientists interested in dragon-assisted farming. Some were offering to pay for consulting. The farm's financial problems were fading, but Owen knew this was about more than money. That evening, Tauren and Mira arrived with official documents. Owen's farm was now registered as an official dragon sanctuary under Foundation protection. Any threats against the property or its inhabitants would be treated as galactic crimes. You will have visitors, Tauren warned. People curious about dragons. Scientists, politicians, the merely nosy. The Foundation will provide security, but your life will never be completely private again. I expected that, Owen said. He had already started building a larger barn, one designed to house multiple dragons comfortably. The Foundation had provided funding and alien construction techniques that made the work surprisingly fast. Mira showed him images on her datapad. We have identified 12 potential locations where your grandfather might have hidden the third egg. We will search them systematically, but it will take time. Or we could ask Cleo, Owen suggested. Both aliens looked at him questioningly. Owen knelt beside Cleo and placed his hand on her head. Through their bond, he projected images and feelings. Her sibling, still sleeping somewhere. The need to find them, to keep them safe. Cleo's eyes focused on something far away. She stood and walked to Owen's grandfather's restored tractor, the one where her egg had been hidden. She sniffed around it, then moved to the tool shed. Inside, she pushed boxes aside until she found an old metal trunk covered in dust. Owen opened it carefully. Inside were maps, dozens of them, with locations marked in his grandfather's handwriting. And at the bottom, a letter addressed to whoever found it. To my grandson or whoever inherits this responsibility. I try to do right by these dragons. Their mother Saren gave everything to protect others. Her children deserve guardians who will do the same. The 3 eggs are hidden where each will find the right person. Trust the dragons. They know who their people are. Owen read the letter aloud. When he finished, Mira was crying again. Your grandfather understood them perfectly. Dragons do not simply bond with anyone. They sense something in their chosen ones. A quality that resonates with their own nature. What quality did Cleo sense in me? Owen asked. That Yenna's voice came from behind them. Owen turned to find the director standing in the doorway of his shed. Stubbornness. Loyalty. The willingness to protect something precious even when it costs you everything. The same qualities your grandfather had. Over the next week, Owen studied the maps. His grandfather had marked locations all over Earth. Small towns, forgotten places, locations that seemed random. But Owen began to see the pattern. Each place had something in common. They were communities where people still looked out for each other, where strangers were welcomed, where kindness mattered more than profit. The third egg wasn't hidden to keep it away from people. It was hidden so it would find the right people. On the 10th day after his return, the egg in the incubator began to crack. Owen had been expecting it, but his heart still raced when Cleo came running into the house, chirping urgently. The Foundation had already assembled a team to observe the hatching. But Owen pushed past the scientists and bureaucrats. This was important. The hatchling needed to see friendly faces first. The egg split open and a dragon tumbled out. This one had scales that shifted between gold and bronze, larger than Cleo had been a hatching. The dragon looked around with intelligent eyes, taking in the strange equipment, the watching aliens, the bright lights. Then it saw Cleo. The hatchling chirped and rushed forward, tangling itself in its own legs and sprawling on the floor. Cleo chirped back and nuzzled her sibling, welcoming them into the world. But the bronze dragon's eyes kept searching, looking for something. Someone a young woman pushed through the crowd. She was Foundation staff. Owen remembered, one of the research assistants. Her name was Brooke. She had been gentle with the egg, speaking to it softly during monitoring sessions. The bronze dragon saw her, and everything stopped. The hatchling made a sound, not quite a chirp, deeper and more resonant. Then it walked straight to Brooke and pressed its head against her legs. Brooke dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, hello there." Owen felt Cleo's joy through their bond. Her sibling was safe, loved, home. Yenna watched with satisfaction. "It seems we have found our second guardian." Owen smiled. "My grandfather knew what he was doing. The dragons find the right people if you give them the chance." The months that followed were busy. The farm became a training center for future dragon guardians. People came from across Earth and beyond to learn, to study, to understand. Owen taught them what he had learned. Patience, respect, love without ownership. Cleo grew in her full size, majestic and powerful. She spent her days helping with the farm and her nights flying under the stars. The bond between them remained strong, growing deeper as time passed. On the anniversary of Cleo's hatching, Owen sat on his porch with his dragon beside him. The sunset painted the sky in colors that matched her scales. In the barn, Brooke was working with her own dragon, their bond developing beautifully. "One more egg out there," Owen said to Cleo. "Think we'll find it?" Cleo rumbled and projected a feeling through their bond. Certainty. The third egg would reveal itself when the time was right, when the right person needed to find it. Owen scratched behind Cleo's head ridge. "Your mom picked a good place to hide you guys. She knew humans would take care of you." Cleo's response was wordless but clear. Humans were good at protecting things, at loving fiercely, at standing between danger and those who could not protect themselves. These were dragon qualities. Her mother had recognized kindred spirits at a message alert chimed on Owen's phone. It was from a small town in Canada. Someone had found something strange in their grandmother's attic, something that pulsed with light and warmth. Owen looked at Cleo. She looked back, her eyes bright with anticipation, ready for another adventure. Cleo spread her wings and roared her answer to the sky. Always ready, always willing. Together, they would find the last egg. They would ensure it found its guardian. And they would continue the work Owen's grandfather had started, protecting dragons, building bridges between species, proving that humans, despite being newcomers to the galactic community, had something precious to offer: the ability to love without hesitation, to protect without reward, to stand firm when standing firm mattered most. Owen climbed onto Cleo's back. She had grown large enough to carry him now, and she loved the excuse to fly. They took to the air, heading north, following coordinates to a small town where a third dragon waited to be found. The sun set behind them, painting the world in gold and crimson. Below, Owen's farm spread out, a sanctuary and training ground for future guardians. Above, the stars emerged one by one, each one a world that might someday know the protection of dragons and their human companions. Owen held tight to Cleo and smiled. His grandfather had given him more than a farm. He had given him a purpose, a family, and a future beyond anything he had imagined. And it had all started with an old tractor and an egg that should not have been there. The best things in life, Owen decided, usually started that way, with something unexpected, something impossible, something worth protecting with everything you had.